There is a specific frequency of mechanical whining that triggers a primal fight-or-flight response in a man who owns heavy machinery. It's not the sound of an engine turning over, and it's not the hiss of air brakes. It's the high-pitched, straining scream of a hydraulic winch cable pulling against dead weight. It was 6:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. The sun wasn't even fully up over the manicured fescue lawns of Oak Haven Estates, a neighborhood so aggressively beige it looked like it had been 3D printed by a depressed architect. I was standing in my kitchen, holding a mug of coffee that was far too hot to drink, staring blankly at the wall, when I heard it. That whine. My stomach dropped through the floor. I didn't grab my keys. I didn't put on shoes. I didn't even check to see if my bathrobe was fully tied. I sprinted through the living room, nearly tripping over the Roomba, and burst out the front door onto the driveway. There it was, my livelihood, my pride and joy, my Ford F-450 Super Duty dually. It's not just a truck. It's a mobile workshop. It's lifted, not for vanity, but because I spend half my life driving through construction sites that look like the surface of Mars. The bed is replaced with a custom aluminum utility body, loaded with a Miller Big Blue welder, oxygen acetylene tanks, and enough tools to disassemble a battleship. It's jet black, meticulously polished, and worth more than the starter home down the street. And right now, a flatbed tow truck from Predator Towing was backed up to its chrome bumper, and a guy in a grease-stained hoodie was hooking chains to my front axle. "Hey!" I shouted, the gravel of the driveway digging into my bare feet. "Hey, drop it! What the hell are you doing?" The driver, a guy who looked like he was made entirely of brisket and bad decisions, paused. He looked at me, then looked at the truck, then back at me. He didn't look malicious. He just looked tired. "Order came in, buddy," he said, his voice gravelly. "Unauthorized commercial vehicle stored in a residential zone. HOA tag." "I live here!" I yelled, closing the distance. I slapped the hood of the F-450. "This is my driveway. You can't tow a vehicle from a private driveway without a police order." "Read the bylaws, Jack," a voice chimed in from the street. I froze. I knew that voice. It was a voice that sounded like chalkboard scratches wrapped in velvet. It was the voice of a woman who measured her self-worth in property value assessments. I turned slowly. Parked at the curb, in a custom electric golf cart painted a shade of pink that didn't exist in nature, was Mrs. Linda Gable, the president of the Oak Haven Homeowners Association. She was wearing a visor, despite the lack of sun, and holding a clipboard like a weapon of war. "Mrs. Gable," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "tell this man to unhook my truck." She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile a shark gives a seal right before the chomp. "I can't do that, Jack. You've been warned 3 times. "I have never been warned." "Check your email spam folder," she said breezily, tapping her pen against the clipboard. "Section 4, Paragraph C of the Oak Haven Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions. No commercial vehicles, including but not limited to vehicles with signage, visible tools, or weight ratings exceeding 1 ton, shall be parked in driveways overnight." That monstrosity violates all 3. I looked at my truck. "It's my work truck, Linda. I'm an underwater welder. I'm on call. I need this here." "Then park it at the storage lot on Highway 9, she suggested. "That's 20 minutes away," I exploded. "If I get an emergency call from the Bridge Authority, I don't have 20 minutes to drive to a storage lot, unlock a gate, swap vehicles, and go. People could die, Linda. Bridges could collapse." "Don't be dramatic," she sniffed. "This is a family neighborhood. We can't have industrial equipment cluttering the view. It brings down the aesthetic cohesion. It looks blue-collar. She said blue-collar, the way most people say leprosy. I looked at the tow driver. He was awkwardly holding the chain, clearly uncomfortable with being in the middle of a suburban class war. "How much?" I asked him. "What?" "To drop it. I know how you guys operate. How much is the drop fee?" He scratched his beard. "Hookup fee is standard. $150, cash." I didn't have cash on me. I turned back to the house. "Don't move," I snarled at Linda. I ran inside, grabbed my emergency stash from the cookie jar, money I was saving for a new diving helmet, and ran back out. I shoved 350s into the driver's hand. "Unhook it," I ordered. He nodded, pocketed the cash, and released the tension on the winch. My truck settled back onto the driveway with a heavy, metallic groan of relief. Mrs. Gable looked disappointed. "You're just delaying the inevitable, Jack. If that truck is here tomorrow morning, he'll be back. And the fine creates a lien on your house. $50 a day." "I'll put it in the garage," I said through gritted teeth. She laughed. A high, tinkling sound. "That thing? In a standard 2-car garage? Good luck, honey." She put the golf cart in gear and whirred away, the little electric motor humming a tune of smug victory. I stood there, shivering in my bathrobe, clutching my cooling coffee mug, and looked at my truck. Then I looked at my garage. It was a standard suburban garage, currently filled with the usual detritus of American life: a kayak I used once, Christmas decorations, a lawnmower, and a workbench. "Challenge accepted," I muttered. The next 6 hours were a blur of sweat, cursing, and physics. I emptied the garage, everything. The kayak went into the backyard. The Christmas decorations went into the attic. The workbench was dismantled. I took a tape measure to the truck. Length 22 feet. Height 7 feet 2 inches, thanks to the roof rack. Width massive. I measured the garage. Depth 22 feet 4 inches. Height 7 feet 4 inches. It was going to be surgery. I backed the truck up. The sensors were screaming at me, a constant, solid tone of panic. "Beep!" I ignored them. I folded the oversized mirrors in. I had to inch it backward, checking both sides every 6 inches. My neighbor Bob came out to watch. Bob is a retired accountant who thinks excitement is finding a new deductible expense. He leaned on his rake, chewing on a toothpick. "You ain't gonna fit that, Jack," Bob said helpfully. "Watch me, Bob." The rear bumper cleared the threshold. The welding rig on the back was the problem. The tanks were high. I had to let 20 psi out of the rear tires to lower the bed by an inch just to clear the header of the garage door. It scraped. A horrible metal-on-wood sound that made my teeth ache, but it cleared. "You're stripping the weather stripping," Bob pointed out. "Sacrifices must be made," I yelled from the cab. I inched back until the trailer hitch tapped the drywall at the back of the garage. Crunch. "Okay," I shouted to myself. I climbed out. I couldn't open the doors. The truck was too wide. I had to roll down the window and crawl out of the cab like a disjointed spider, tumbling onto the concrete floor. I dusted myself off and hit the button for the garage door. It rattled down. It passed the hood. It passed the front bumper. It closed. Darkness. I stood there in the dark, breathing heavy, smelling the hot rubber and diesel. I had done it. I turned on the garage light. The front bumper was touching the garage door. The rear hitch was embedded in the drywall. I had to suck in my gut to squeeze past the fender to get into the house. But it was in. It was hidden. Mrs. Linda Gable could take her aesthetic cohesion and shove it. I slept soundly that night, the sleep of the righteous, the sleep of a man who had beaten the system with geometry. 3 days passed. I developed a routine. In the morning, I would open the garage, crawl into the truck window, start it up, drive out, and close the door immediately. In the evening, I would reverse the process. It was annoying. It added 20 minutes to my day, but it kept the HOA off my back, or so I thought. On Friday, I came home from a brutal job. I had been underwater for 6 hours repairing an intake pipe at a hydroelectric dam. I was exhausted, cold to the bone, and smelling like pond scum. I did the dance, backed the truck in, crawled out the window, squeezed past the fender, and went inside. I grabbed a beer and walked to the mailbox. Inside was a creamy white envelope, embossed with the Oak Haven oak tree logo. My hand shook as I opened it. Violation notice. Resident, Jack Miller. Address, 742 Evergreen Terrace. Violation, breach of Article 9, Section 2, unsightly exposure of interior spaces. Description, on Thursday, October 12th, between the hours of 6:15 a.m. and 6:30 a.m., and again, between 5:45 p.m. and 6 o'clock p.m., the garage door was left fully open, exposing commercial equipment and a cluttered interior to the street view. As per the new Curb Appeal initiative passed by the board last Tuesday, garage doors may not remain open for more than 10 minutes unless active loading/unloading of non-commercial items is taking place. Fine. $200, $100. Note: continued parking of the commercial vehicle inside the garage is technically a violation of the spirit of the community, but we will waive that if the door remains closed. However, your door was open for 15 minutes. I stared at the paper, the spirit of the community. She had someone timing me. She literally had someone sitting out there with a stopwatch, waiting for me to wriggle out of my truck window. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I felt a cold, icy calm wash over me. It was the same calm I felt when I was 100 feet down in murky water and my airline got snagged. It was the calm of a man assessing a threat and preparing to neutralize it. I walked back inside. I put the letter on the counter. I looked at the fines. $500 for the first day, $200 for the garage door. They wanted $700 because I owned a truck that I used to build the infrastructure that allowed them to charge their damn Teslas. Okay, Linda, I whispered to the empty kitchen. You want to play by the book? You want to talk about rules and boundaries and jurisdiction? I went to my office. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't eat dinner. I sat down at my computer and opened the county GIS mapping system. If they wanted a war over who owned what patch of asphalt, I was going to give them a war. But first, I had to do my homework. I pulled up the plat maps for Oak Haven Estates. I zoomed in. I traced the property lines. The neighborhood was built in phases. Phase 1, where I lived, was built in 2008, right before the market crashed. The developer, Sunshine Homes, went belly up halfway through the project. The HOA took over the common areas. I looked at the map. I toggled the layer for parcel ownership. The parks were owned by the HOA. The retention ponds were owned by the HOA. The cul-de-sacs were owned by the HOA. But then I saw it. Leading into the neighborhood, there was a single, long stretch of asphalt. Oak Haven Drive. It was about half a mile long, connecting the main county highway to the entrance gate of our subdivision. It was lined with beautiful oak trees. It was the only way in and the only way out. I clicked on the road. Usually roads are dedicated to the county, or they are deeded to the HOA. The pop-up window appeared on my screen. Parcel ID SO9-44221A. Owner: Sunshine Homes Liquidation Trust, defunct. Status: tax delinquent. Years: delinquent, 15. I blinked. I wiped my screen. I looked again. The developer had forgotten to transfer the deed to the main road before they dissolved. The county hadn't taken it because it wasn't up to current width codes, so they refused. Maintenance. The HOA thought they owned it, so they had been paying a landscaping crew to mow the grass on the sides. But they hadn't paid the property taxes on the actual land because, well, you don't pay taxes on a road you think is public. But it wasn't public. It was private property, abandoned private property. And in the state of Florida, when property taxes go unpaid for that long, the county auctions off the tax deed to the highest bidder. I opened a new tab. County Tax Collector. Auction Calendar. My heart started hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. There was an auction scheduled for next Tuesday. I scrolled through the list of properties. Swamplands. Slivers of land between houses. And there, buried on page 14, Parcel 9-44221A. Access strip, ingress, egress. 2.4 acres. Starting bid, $3,800. 2.4 acres. That was the road. I sat back in my chair. A slow, wicked grin spread across my face. I looked at the fine Mrs. Gable had sent me. Spirit of the community. I picked up my phone and called my bank. Hi, this is Jack Miller. Yeah, I need to move some funds. No, not for a boat. I'm buying some real estate. What kind? Oh, just a little strip of land with a lot of traffic potential. The hook was set. Now I just had to reel it in. The weekend before the auction was torture. I had to act normal. I had to be the beaten dog. I parked my truck in the garage. I closed the door in under 4 minutes, sweating like a marathon runner to beat the invisible stopwatch. I waved at Mrs. Gable when she drove by. She didn't wave back. She just tapped her watch, reminding me that she was watching. On Monday night, there was an HOA meeting. I decided to go. I needed to be absolutely sure that they had no idea what was about to happen. Also, I wanted to see if I could get them to be reasonable one last time. Call it due diligence. Call it giving them enough rope to hang themselves. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a building that smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. About 30 residents were there. Most were there to complain about dog poop or trash cans being left out too late. Mrs. Gable sat at the head table, flanked by the board, a collection of retirees who treated the HOA bylaws like the Geneva Convention. New business, Linda announced, banging her little gavel. Mr. Miller, I believe you requested time to speak regarding your vehicle situation. I stood up. I took off my ball cap. I tried to look humble. Yes, Mrs. Gable. Look, I'm asking for a variance. My truck is my livelihood. I can't fit it in the garage without damaging the house, and the storage lot isn't feasible for emergency calls. I'm willing to put a cover on it. I'm willing to park it behind the fence line if you let me extend the driveway. Denied, Linda said before I even finished. You didn't even vote, I pointed out. We discussed it in executive session, she said, checking her nails. We cannot make exceptions. If we let you park your monster truck, then the guy down the street will want to park his boat. Then someone will want to park an RV. It's a slippery slope, Jack. We have standards. Oak Haven is a pristine community. Your truck, it projects the wrong image. The image of people who work for a living? I asked, feeling the anger rising again. The image of noise and dirt, she corrected. The variance is denied. And pay your fines, Jack. You're up to $900. The room was silent. I looked around at my neighbors. Some looked sympathetic, but most just looked at the floor. They didn't want to cross Linda. She controlled the architectural review committee. If you pissed her off, suddenly your mailbox was the wrong shade of black. "Okay," I said quietly. "I just wanted to be clear. You care about the rules. Strictly the rules." "Rules are what separate civilization from chaos," she said, quoting the HOA newsletter header. "Got it. Civilization. Rules." I nodded. "See you around, Linda." I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I walked to my car, got in, and screamed into the steering wheel for 5 solid seconds. Then I drove to the county clerk's office to double-check my research one last time before the auction tomorrow. The clerk's office was a fluorescent-lit purgatory of filing cabinets and sad-looking ferns. I pulled a ticket and waited. And waited. Finally, number 42 was called. I walked up to the counter. The woman behind the glass, whose name tag read Brenda, looked like she had been working there since the invention of paper. "Help you?" she sighed. "Hi, Brenda. I need to verify a legal description on a parcel up for tax deed auction tomorrow. Parcel 0944221A. She typed slowly. Painfully slowly. "Sunshine Homes. Liquidation. Yeah, it's on the docket. What about it?" "I just want to confirm the boundaries. Does this parcel include the paved surface known as Oak Haven Drive?" She squinted at the screen, then pulled out a large laminated map. She traced a line with a finger that had a bandage on it. "Yep," she said, popping her gum. "See these lines? The parcel covers 50 feet from the center line, includes the asphalt, the curbs, and the drainage ditch. It connects County Road 402 to the gatehouse of the subdivision." "And the status? Any easements?" "Utility easements for power and water," she droned. "But surface rights? It's fee simple. Whoever buys it owns the surface. It's a private road, honey. The county never adopted it." "So," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "if someone bought it, they could control traffic?" Brenda looked at me over her glasses. She saw the gleam in my eye. She had probably seen a lot of crazy people in this office, but she paused. "Technically," she said, lowering her voice, "if you own a private road, you set the rules. Speed limits, weight limits, tolls." "Tolls?" I hadn't even thought of tolls. "As long as you don't block emergency sign. Vehicles, it's your driveway. Just a really long one." She smirked. "Neighbor trouble? You have no idea, Brenda." "I hate HOAs," she said, suddenly becoming my favorite person in the world. "My HOA fined me for having a bird feeder that wasn't rustic enough. Go get 'em, Tiger." I left the office walking on air. Tuesday morning. The auction was held on the courthouse steps. It wasn't like the movies. There was no guy talking 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was just a deputy sheriff reading off numbers to a group of about 10 investors who were mostly looking for cheap houses to flip. "Parcel 0944221A, the deputy droned. "Vacant land, access strip, opening bid, taxes and fees owed. $3,800. I raised my hand. "Bid." The investors looked at their lists. They saw it was a narrow strip of road, useless for building a house, useless for farming. They lost interest immediately. "I have $3,800. Do I hear $4,000? Silence. A pigeon cooed on the statue of the Confederate soldier nearby. Going once. My heart hammered. Going twice. Don't look at me. Please, nobody look at the map. Sold to bidder number. What's your number, son? 14, I choked out. Sold to bidder 14 for $3,800. I wrote the check. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely sign my name. I took the receipt. The deed would be mailed in a week, but the receipt was legal proof of purchase. I walked to my truck. my beautiful, banned commercial truck, and sat in the driver's seat. I looked at the receipt. I owned the road. I owned the asphalt Linda drove her Lexus on. I owned the speed bumps she ignored. I owned the very entrance to her kingdom. I pulled out my phone. I needed a contractor, not a house builder. I needed a road guy. I called Big Tony. Tony was a guy I knew from the commercial diving world. He used to be a tender, but he got too fat for the wetsuits and started a paving company. He was legally blind in one eye and questionable in the other, but he was cheap, and he didn't ask questions. Tony, it's Jack. Jackie boy, you need a driveway poured? Not exactly, Tony. I need speed bumps. Speed bumps? How many? All of them, I said. I want as many as you can legally fit in a half-mile stretch. And I want them high, Tony. I want them aggressive. I want them to rattle the fillings out of a teeth. Whoa, Tony laughed. You trying to stop tanks? No, I said, watching a Prius drive past me. I'm trying to stop entitlement. Can you start tomorrow? For you? I can start tonight. What about paint? Yellow, I said. Bright, obnoxious yellow, and I need signs, custom signs. What do you want him to say? I looked at the citation on my passenger seat. Commercial vehicle prohibited. Write this down, Tony. Private road, maximum speed 5 MPH. Violators will be prosecuted. Commercial vehicles priority access. 5 miles an hour? Tony wheezed. Jack, you can walk faster than that. That's the point, Tony. That is exactly the point. The deed arrived on Thursday. I had the legal paper, I had the survey, and most importantly, I had Big Tony and his crew of misfits ready to go. We planned the operation like a military strike. We had to do it fast, and we had to do it when the least amount of people would be using the road, so we didn't get stopped before we finished. Saturday morning, 2:00 a.m. The convoy rolled out. My F-450 led the way, amber lights flashing. Behind me was Tony's paver, a steamroller, and a truck full of hot asphalt. We staged at the entrance of Oak Haven Drive, right where it turned off the county highway. All right, boys, Tony shouted, chewing on an unlit cigar. You heard the man. Every 50 feet. Make 'em steep. The work began. The smell of hot tar filled the night air. It was the smell of revenge. I didn't just put in speed bumps. That would be too simple. I created an obstacle course. First, we painted the curbs. The HOA liked subtle, sandstone-colored curbs. I had Tony paint them safety yellow. It looked like a radioactive banana. Then, the bumps. These weren't the gentle, rolling mounds you see at the mall. These were traffic calming devices in the same way a brick wall is a traffic calming device. They were 6 inches high and narrow. If you hit them at anything over 3 miles per hour, your suspension would scream for mercy. We installed 15 of them. Then came the signage. I had spent a fortune at a custom sign shop. At the very entrance, we planted a massive metal sign, cemented 3 feet into the ground. Welcome to Jack Miller Boulevard, formerly Oak Haven Doctor. Private property. Speed limit 5 mph, strictly enforced. Every 100 feet, we put up smaller signs. Slow down children at play, and me. No idling commercial vehicles. Left lane, non-commercial vehicles. Right lane, yield. By 6:00 a.m., the sun was rising. The crew was packing up. The steamroller was loaded. The paint was drying. I stood at the entrance of the neighborhood with a cup of coffee. The transformation was breathtaking. The elegant, sweeping drive of Oak Haven Estates now looked like the entrance to a high-security prison or a very poorly designed go-kart track. I had one final touch. The toll booth. I hadn't actually built a booth yet, permits take time, but I had set up a folding table, a beach umbrella, and a heavy-duty gate arm that Tony had acquired from a parking garage demolition. I called my Uncle Ray. Uncle Ray is 74. He is a retired Marine. He is deaf in his left ear, refuses to wear a hearing aid, and hates everyone except me and his cat. He was the perfect man for the job. "Ray," I shouted into the phone the day before, "I need security. You get to wear a vest and stop rich people." He was there in 10 minutes. Now Ray sat at the folding table in a neon orange vest that was 2 sizes too big, holding a stop sign. "Ready, Ray?" I asked. "What?" Ray yelled. "I said, are you ready?" "Born ready. Who are we stopping?" "Everyone. Check ID. If they don't live here, $10. If they do live here, remind them of the speed limit." "Got it. Hippies pay double." "No, Ray. Just stick to the script." I retreated to my truck, which was parked prominently on the grass verge, my grass verge, and waited. The first car approached at 6:15 a.m. It was Mr. Henderson from down the street. He drove a Corvette. He was usually in a hurry to get to the golf course. He turned off the highway. He saw the 5 MPH sign. He ignored it. He accelerated. Wham! The front splitter of his Corvette met speed bump number 1. The sound was sickening, plastic shattering against asphalt. The car bounced violently. Mr. Henderson slammed on his brakes. He sat there for a moment, stunned. Then he opened his door and looked at his bumper. It was hanging off. I rolled down my window. "Slow down, neighbor. Safety first," I yelled cheerfully. He looked at me, purple with rage. "Jack, what the hell is this? Who put these here?" "I did. Road maintenance. Watch out, there's 14 more." "14?" He got back in his car. He crawled over the bump. He approached Uncle Ray. Ray stood up and held up the stop sign. Henderson rolled down his window. "Get out of the way." "ID," Ray shouted. "I live here, you lunatic. I'm Bill Henderson." "Bill? Never heard of you. Show me the license." Henderson fumbled for his wallet, cursing. He showed it. "All right, Bill. Watch your speed. 5 miles an hour. Eyes on the road." Ray waved him through with a dismissive hand flick. Henderson gunned it, out of habit, and immediately hit speed bump number 2. Thunk! I watched him crawl away, his brake lights flashing every 10 feet as he navigated the gauntlet. It took him 5 minutes to travel the half-mile. Usually, it took 30 seconds. Then, at 7:45 a.m., the main event arrived. The pink golf cart didn't come. She was in her Lexus SUV today. Mrs. Linda Gable. She turned onto the road. She saw the yellow curbs. She saw the signs. She saw the speed bumps. She stopped the car. She didn't hit the bump. She just sat there, staring. She lowered her window. I could see her grabbing her phone. She was calling the police. I sipped my coffee. "Right on schedule," I murmured. Officer Miller, no relation, sadly, arrived about 10 minutes later. He pulled up behind Linda's Lexus, lights flashing. Linda jumped out of her car like she was on fire. She ran to the cop. I could hear her screaming from 50 yards away. "Vandalism! Sabotage! Terrorist act!" I casually walked over, holding a thick binder of documents. Officer Miller looked at the speed bumps. He looked at the signs. He looked at Uncle Ray, who was currently eating a hard-boiled egg and ignoring the chaos. "Sir," Officer Miller said to me, "did you do this?" "I sure did, officer," I said, beaming. "You can't just modify a public roadway," he said, reaching for his ticket book. "This is destruction of public property and creating a hazard." "Actually," I said, opening my binder, "it's not public property." I handed him the tax deed. I handed him the survey. I handed him the title. "I bought this road at auction on Tuesday. It is a private drive. Parcel 0944221A. As the owner, I am liable for accidents, so I decided to implement strict traffic calming measures to ensure the safety of the community. Can't be too careful with the kids, right?" Officer Miller paused. He read the deed. He looked at the survey. He looked at the road. You own the road?" he asked, baffled. "Lock, stock, and barrel, from the highway to the gate." Linda shrieked. "That's impossible. The HOA owns the road." "The HOA thinks they own the road," I corrected. "But they didn't pay the taxes for 15 years. I did." Officer Miller looked at Linda. "Ma'am, is this true? Do you have a deed?" It's common area," she stammered. "Paperwork says it's his," Miller said, handing the binder back to me. He was fighting a smile. He knew Linda. Everyone in the precinct knew Linda. She called 911 if a dog barked after 9 p.m. "So," Miller said to me, "this is private property." "Yes, sir. And frankly, Mrs. Gable is trespassing. She's been very aggressive. I'm worried about her driving. I think I need to restrict her access." "You can't restrict my access to my house!" Linda screamed. "Actually," I said, flipping to a highlighted section of property law I had printed out, "I have to grant you easement for access, but I don't have to grant you vehicular access if you violate the safety rules of the private road. You can walk." "Walk?" She looked at the half-mile stretch of asphalt. She was wearing heels. "Or," I said, "you can drive, at 5 miles per hour. If you go 6, Ray will ban you. Right, Ray?" "She looks comme ci, comme ça," Ray yelled, completely misreading the room. Officer Miller put his notebook away. "Ma'am, it looks like a civil matter. The road is his property. If he wants speed bumps, he can have speed bumps. I suggest you drive slowly." "But he ruined the aesthetic," she wailed. "I think the yellow pops," Miller said. He looked at me. "Nice truck, by the way. Is that the new 6.7 liter? "Sure is," I said. "Pulls like a freight train." "Nice. Y'all have a good day." Miller got in his cruiser. He drove over the first speed bump. He took it slow. He waved as he left. Linda stood there, vibrating with rage. "This isn't over, Jack," she hissed. "I know, Linda," I said, gesturing to the line of cars beginning to stack up behind her. "You're blocking traffic. The sign says no idling. That's a $10 fine." She got in her car. She slammed the door. She drove over the speed bump. Scrape. She drove over the next one. Thunk. I watched her bounce down the road, head bobbing like a bobblehead doll. "Tony," I whispered to myself, "you're an artist." By Wednesday, the neighborhood was in full meltdown. The speed bumps were effective. Too effective. What used to be a 2-minute drive from the highway to the back of the subdivision was now a 20-minute ordeal. The Uber Eats drivers refused to enter. They would pull up to Uncle Ray, see the toll sign — Ray had started charging delivery drivers a cookie tax — look at the speed bumps, and cancel the order. Residents were parking their cars on the shoulder of the county highway and walking the half-mile home rather than subject their suspensions to my road. But the real chaos was the morning commute. On Thursday morning, I sat in my lawn chair by the toll booth, watching the line of cars. It was backed up all the way to the cul-de-sacs. Mrs. Gable was 3 cars back. She was honking. I picked up my megaphone. "Attention drivers. Honking is a violation of the noise ordinance of Jack Miller Boulevard. Violators will be delayed." I walked over to the lead car. It was a soccer mom in a minivan. She looked ready to cry. "I'm going to be late for school drop-off," she pleaded. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I said politely. "Safety is our #1 priority. We can't have people zooming around at 6 miles per hour. It's reckless." "This is insane," she yelled. "Why are you doing this?" "Ask the HOA," I said. "I'm just a guy with a truck who needed a place to park. Since I couldn't park in my driveway, I bought the road. Now I park here." I pointed to my F-450. It was parked diagonally across the commercial vehicle lane, which was the only lane that bypassed the speed bumps. It was perfectly legal. It was my road. Just then, a FedEx truck pulled up. I knew the driver, heavy-set guy named Steve. "Hey, Steve!" I shouted. "Hey, Jack! Nice road!" Steve yelled over his engine. "Commercial lane is open, Steve. Come on through." I moved my truck. Steve roared past the line of angry residents, bypassing the speed bumps on the smooth, flat commercial lane I had left unbumped on the left side. He honked happily. The residents watched in horror. The Amazon guy went next, then a plumber. "Wait!" Mrs. Gable screamed from her window. "Why do they get to go fast?" "Commercial vehicles are vital to the economy, Linda," I shouted back. "We support the working class on this road. If you want to use the express lane, you need a commercial vehicle." "Oh, wait. Aren't those banned in the neighborhood?" Her face turned a color of purple that I didn't think was biologically possible. That afternoon, the HOA email blast went out. "Urgent community alert. The entrance road has been illegally seized by a hostile resident. We are working on a legal solution. Please remain patient." I printed it out and taped it to the toll booth. Underneath, I wrote in Sharpie, "Define hostile." By Friday, the revolt began, but not against me. I was watering the grass near the entrance, my grass, when Bob, the accountant neighbor, walked up. He looked tired. His BMW had a new rattle. "Jack," he said. "Bob, this has to stop." "I agree, Bob. It's terrible. The traffic is awful." "You're a maniac." "I'm a property owner exercising my rights, Bob. Just like Linda said. Rules are what separate civilization from chaos." Bob sighed. He looked at the line of cars crawling over the bumps. "What do you want, Jack?" "I want to park my truck in my driveway. I want the fines rescinded. I want an apology." "That's it?" "That's it. Linda will never apologize. She'd rather die." "Then I guess you better get used to 5 MPH, Bob. By the way, I'm thinking of adding a roundabout tomorrow, right in the middle. Maybe a fountain." Bob paled. "I'll talk to the board. You do that." Saturday, day 5 of the siege of Oak Haven. The garbage trucks had refused to enter the neighborhood on Friday because of the toll. Ray asked them for a ride on the back. They said no. He denied entry. The trash was piling up in the August heat. The residents were breaking. I received a formal summons to an emergency board meeting to be held at the clubhouse at noon. I decided to drive. I got in my F-450. I drove down my commercial lane at a breezy 20 mph. I pulled into the clubhouse parking lot and double-parked right in front of the door. I walked in. The room was packed. Every resident was there. The air conditioning was struggling to keep up with the body heat and the anger. The board sat at the front. Linda looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was slightly askew. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice shaking. "We are prepared to offer you a settlement. I'm listening. We will waive the fines. All of them. Just remove the bumps. And give us the road back. I laughed. Give you the road? Linda, I paid for it. I paid for the improvements. I paid for the signage. I paid Big Tony premium overtime rates. We will reimburse you for the auction price, she said. 3,800. No. What do you want? I want to sell the road to the HOA, I said coolly. But the price has gone up. Market value, you know. Supply and demand. There's a lot of demand for this road right now. How much? The treasurer asked. He was sweating. $150,000, I said. The room erupted. People shouted. Extortion! Robbery! Quiet, I yelled. And I want a legally binding covenant signed by the entire board and filed with the county, exempting my property, specifically 742 Evergreen Terrace, from all commercial vehicle restrictions, aesthetic guidelines regarding vehicles, and garage door timing rules. In perpetuity. Forever. That's blackmail, Linda shrieked. It's business, I said. Or I keep the road. And starting Monday, the toll for residents goes up to $20 a trip. I need to recoup my investment. I looked at the crowd. It's up to you folks. You can keep Linda's pride, or you can have your road back. A man in the back stood up. It was Mr. Henderson, the Corvette owner. Pay him, Henderson yelled. My suspension is ruined. Pay the man and let him park his damn truck. Seconded, shouted the soccer mom. Linda, sign the paper, someone else yelled. Linda looked around. She was losing the room. She was losing her kingdom. We don't have $150,000 in the reserve fund, she whispered. Special assessment, I suggested helpfully. Divide it up. It's what? $500 a house? Small price to pay for aesthetic cohesion. She glared at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. If looks could kill, I'd be a pile of ash. Fine, she spat. We accept. In writing, I said. My lawyer is outside. I opened the door. My cousin Vinny, yes, really, walked in with a briefcase. He wasn't a great lawyer, but he owned a suit and knew how to use a notary stamp. We spent the next hour drafting the agreement. The check was cut. The covenant was signed. The variance was recorded. As I signed the transfer deed for the road, I paused. One last thing, I said. What now? Linda groaned. The statue stays. What statue? The one I'm installing tomorrow at the entrance, to commemorate the historic Jack Miller Boulevard. It's a bronze replica of a lug nut. Tasteful. Classy. Fine, she sobbed. Just give us the road. I signed. The speed bumps came up on Monday. Big Tony was happy to charge the HOA to remove the very bumps he had charged me to install. The circle of life. I took the $150,000 check and paid off my mortgage. I had enough left over to buy a new welding rig and a very nice bottle of scotch. The neighborhood returned to normal, mostly. The garbage was collected. The Amazon drivers returned. The sound of bottoming out suspensions faded from memory. But things had changed. Mrs. Gable resigned 2 weeks later. Citing stress, she moved to a condo in Boca Raton. I hear their HOA is very strict. I wish them luck. As for me, I was standing in my driveway this morning. It was 6:00 a.m. The sun was coming up. My F-450 Super Duty was parked right there in the driveway. The black paint gleamed in the dawn light. The welding rig looked rugged and capable. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Officer Miller drove by on his patrol. He slowed down. "Morning, Jack," he called out over the PA system. "Morning, officer." I waved with my coffee mug. He pointed to the truck. "Looking good." "It sure is," I said. I looked at the entrance to the neighborhood. The bronze lug nut statue was there, shining in the sun. And right next to it, the HOA had put up a new sign. Oak Haven Estates. Welcome. They had removed the No Commercial Vehicles sign. I took a sip of coffee. It tasted like victory. I patted the hood of the beast. "Come on, girl," I whispered. "We got work to do." I climbed in, fired up the diesel engine, letting it roar a little louder than necessary, and rolled out to fix the world, one weld at a time. The road was smooth under my tires, but every time I drove over the spot where speed bump number 1 used to be, I swear I could feel a little phantom bump, a little reminder. Don't mess with a man's truck, and never, ever forget to pay your property taxes on the road.